This is Coda Radio, episode 22 for November 5th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Guten Morgen.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Have you survived?
I'm still alive, baby.
Wow. Look at you. So last week, as we were wrapping up, Sandy was starting to smack your neighborhood, and you got smacked around.
Yeah, well, compared to other neighborhoods in my county, my town did very well.
That's good. That's very good.
That's not to say that there wasn't damage, but a friend of mine lives a town over. Her house was destroyed.
Wow.
So I live on the Jersey Shore, if you're a new listener. There is significant permanent damage down here. They're talking, a few of my clients have actually closed.
Jeez.
A lot of touristy businesses have closed, restaurants. Many towns do not have power, and we are still under a gasoline rationing order. Also, many towns are under curfew orders.
Your curfew was just lifted a little while ago.
Yesterday, I believe, yes.
This is crazy.
And our curfew was 7 p.m. When I was a teenager, I had a higher curfew than that.
Well, I'm glad your power's back on, and you were out of power for a little bit.
Oh, for several days, yes.
Jeez. Man, I would have lost it. I would have gone crazy.
It was kind of, as we were saying in the pre-show, I lost power, and then I think like 4 days later, I got it back. And the world had changed. Mm-hmm. So I really, I had power on my mobiles. But I come back, and Disney owned Star Wars, and something's going on with some kind of Nexus. And
Canonical's making an SDK that we're going to talk about. I mean, it's craziness.
I kind of thought I was like Dorothy. I got, the storm had taken me somewhere else.
Well, maybe we should focus on the show, keep our minds off the storm. Should we start with the feedback this week?
Yes. So Brandon writes in to tell me that colocations are actually fairly expensive, which I have also found to be true.
Yeah.
So the trick, we talked about this last week, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But basically, colos are expensive, but cloud solutions like EC2 or Azure or whatever get very, very expensive at a certain scale. And there is a certain point where a colo would be cheaper. So the question is anticipating that, first getting to that scale, and then finding when a colo would be better. From a cost perspective, there's also the argument that, I don't know, there's this whole idea of if your main product is like a service, you should actually control the server. I know the folks over at Stack Overflow feel that very strongly, but I'm still on the fence with this one. The other side effect, of course, I wanted a local colo, and they're not in great shape right now.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that on the heels of that conversation, literally you and I were just talking about that, and then we see all these stories. I don't know, since you've been offline, if you saw on TechSnap, we covered, like at the Pier 1 data center, how the guys were carrying barrels full of gasoline just to keep the generators running up 17 flights of stairs.
Right, and there are a lot of legitimate reasons to want your servers to be physically near you. I happen to live at the shore, so given recent events, I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense. So definitely going to have to give it more thought. I still think ultimately I do want a hybrid solution.
I think too, well, if you're looking at, starting a project, why not start on something cheap like a VPS? And as long as it's like a pretty standardized Ubuntu, Apache, or Nginx, some sort of standardized database, you can move that to EC2. You can move that anywhere.
Right. Well, I currently am on Azure, and it's free because there's the free.
I don't know how. See, the nice thing, the advantage to something like EC2 is you could actually run the Ubuntu system that you built somewhere else. So you could literally pick it up and move it.
So you can do that with Azure, supposedly, with the Server 2012.
Oh.
Now, of course, there's license fees attached to that. But
and it's Server 2012.
Right. And
which
if you have MS, I kind of like Server 2012, certainly compared to, 03. I'll put it to you that way.
If we don't have to go into this far in this, but if I'm making a file server for 20, 30 users, or an Active Directory server for even a couple thousand users, server 2012 would be fine. But if I'm doing a web service where I think I could have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of users, I don't think I would. I wouldn't use Windows 2012 myself. So you might just want to consider that.
Right, and that's so the real reason that's an option is because it's written in ASP.NET.
Oh, well, okay, that changes a little bit.
The reason for that is because as a one-man band,
yeah,
the magic you get along with that is definitely something that's required. Could have gone with Rails. I just didn't. I don't know why.
You're a hater. It's cool. I understand.
I'm not really a hater. I mean, I've shipped Rails. I don't mind Rails. I just one thing I find is getting help at Rails that's actually somewhat affordable and that you can get on demand.
Well, aren't you? I mean, so are you doing like one of those things where you're trying out something in ASP.NET, kind of exploring the language, seeing the advantages, discovering what you like about it, sort of being jazzed up about it for a while, and then you go through that period and you'll learn a lot about it, and you'll sort of come at the end of that and you'll be like, you have a good perspective of what it's all about, and you kind of just invest in it for a while. Right?
That's basically it. And so far, I have to say, compared to Rails, ASP.NET has a lot of the same magic, but the tooling is so much better and less, picky, that I actually like it. Also, it's really easy to get people to help you with C#. It can be a little more costly to get help with Ruby. And also, right now, I'm kind of I like the C# kick.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with the language. I've recently been open sourcing some of my scripts. They're all in Ruby. I spent a lot of time writing Ruby. So I don't know. Maybe it's just boredom.
Yeah, I think it's just intellectual curiosity to some extent too, and then you start building something with it, and you start you really start learning about it.
I mean, listen, if this project ever ships, and the license fees become an issue, or whatever, there's always mono. I could port it to mono, or I could even. There are all ways to handle that. So we'll see how it goes. It may never ship it. This may end up just being a learning exercise.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll keep us posted, as they say.
Yes. So Jason writes in saying he's thinking of striking out on his own, but he doesn't know where to find clients or customers, if you prefer. I don't recommend the East Coast. No, I'm kidding. Things are a little closed here. I would go with, honestly, the best way you're going to find clients is referrals. People you've worked with at a job.
Yeah.
Personal connections, especially for those first few. You could go the job posting board route.
Like Craigslist kind of a thing?
You can. Sometimes it works. I've done it. Occasionally, I still do it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you're going to spend a lot of time on the phone needing to filter people out who expect Angry Birds for $100.
I mean, I think a lot of the way people... this is just my experience, really. But the way I kind of went on my own is sort of momentum brought me there because I had enough people that were former clients or were whatever it was from whatever situation in my past life where they wanted to hire me. And so I just kind of had enough of them where I collected it all together and sort of made a thing out of it. So if you're starting at zero, you might want to establish some of those contacts first.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get a client relationship with your employer as you leave the company, that would be ideal. Oftentimes employers are not up for that, though.
It would be sweet, though, because, if you have like a specialty knowledge and they want to continue to consult with you, maybe you've developed something in-house that they use, something like that.
There's definitely ways to do it. There's lots of sites where you can bid on projects. I don't really use them.
Oh, yeah.
I know people who do, and it can work, but you're going to have to expect a very low closure rate. Perhaps not as low as Craigslist. But I always, I know there's all these new tools for finding clients, but I still prefer the old school way, kind of like what Chris was saying. Just personal connections. because it's safer, right? I mean, Jason, you don't want to end up, especially if you're starting out, taking a project, because I'm assuming you've not really done a lot of estimating on your own yet. Taking on a project from Craigslist and having it be 3 times as much time as you estimated.
Oh, that would be bad. That'd be rough. That'd be a tough
And you
start.
and you would take a bath right in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know.
Well,
It's definitely the personal connections. But if you don't,
I'd be curious to hear if people wouldn't mind sending in kind of how, if people have gone off on their own, email us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. How did you get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I mean, maybe me and Chris obviously did it in relatively the same way.
I think a lot of people do it that way. I mean, that's the way I kind of know how to do it. Is you kind of get momentum roll, and then you kind of look at it, and sometimes you do kind of have to make that I'm not quite there yet leap, and then you just got to go for it, and then hopefully everything works out. Or sometimes it's so obvious that when you look at it from your, when you take a step back, you go, oh, geez, I really could just make a living doing this. But maybe that's just our experiences. So email us and let us know, you guys. How did you sort of get that process started? Wonder what we'll get.
Oh, apparently there's some kind of sound on the stream. I may have kicked my desk. I don't know. Sorry about that.
Oh, it might be the cord. Is the USB cord hitting the mic stand? Like that. That was it right there.
Oh, you know what it is?
What's
the
that?
Stand is falling down.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
That's what sucks is that if any sound in the stand travels into the mic, so he doesn't even know it's happening. There you go.
All right. It should be locked and loaded. Moving right along. Zane, which is an awesome name.
Nope, that's back again.
It's back again?
It's okay. Just keep going.
Okay. Zane would like to know what resource I recommend for learning the basics of design for a developer.
Oh, that's an interesting challenge. How do you get started in that?
Well, there's, I think, The Elements of Design, which is a very popular book. Honestly, Zane, I would say don't worry about it. I mean, peepcode.com has some great videos you can buy about design. But you're kind of, if you devote a lot of time to learning design or user experience or graphics design, I'm assuming you mean all of those, you're not keeping up with your development skills. That's kind of somebody else's job. You don't need to, you need to understand a little bit, but I don't think you need to devote X amount of time to study it. One thing, I'm assuming you're a front-end developer, just pay attention to sites that are known to have good design and see what they do, and to a point, emulate that.
It's still going pretty crazy, whatever that sound is. Now I hear it. Now that we brought it up.
All right, hang on. Let me try something.
All right. Well, I'll cover the next question while you do that. Here, I'll even mute you for a minute if you need to get rough with it. Here, so you'll be down for like 30 seconds. Ben would like to know if I have a different VM for each client that I visit, and this is an interesting question because you could see some advantages to doing this because maybe I would want to have security isolation or something like that. Now, there you go, Mr. Dominic. You're back now.
Okay.
So I do. The short answer to that question is yes, but the long answer is I'm kind of tricky the way I do it. And the reason I do it is because I always inevitably, and generally these are Linux VMs, I almost inevitably need to install like a whole suite of tools. Like I have one client where I need a local Postgres database in order to do part of my work for them. So I don't want I don't always want to be running Postgres. So I have little Ubuntu VMs that I run. But the way I kind of make it all work is I'm always sharing with the host operating system. So like all my notes are in the host operating system. Generally my instant messaging sessions are in the host operating system and things like that. So the host operating system is sort of like my global clipboard almost between all of the VMs. And that's my answer to that.
Okay, fair enough.
I really seriously like VMware is I still like VMware Workstation. It's still my favorite, and VMware Fusion when I bring my MacBook. Those are my two favorites. And it is the performance these days on a good Core i7 box with an SSD is near native.
Okay, and so you actually do have a different VM per client. Wow.
I do, but I'm generally that's at most at any given time that's 2 or 3 people because I only have so many clients because I have a lot of Jupiter Broadcasting work too. So it's not like we're talking like now if I was at my full load where I was having like 15, 20 clients, that would be probably just not doable from storage.
Now, are they all one particular distro or
almost always all their own? unless for some reason I haven't updated it. Like if I go to a client I haven't been to for a while. But generally what I'll do is I don't really store anything in the distro, right? I have Dropbox, but what I do is I mount a local folder in the VM to my host. So I'm only running Dropbox on the host. So, a lot of all that stuff's in there. So I just generally after a while, I just make one VM. So example, when Ubuntu 12.04 came out, I made one really great, totally nicely set up VM, and then I copied it a couple of times.
Okay, so I was figuring you did an LTS kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, sometimes depends. It kind of just depends, and if I'm doing like a security audit or something like that, maybe I need newer tools.
Okay.
I'm not. Oh, it just gosh, really. I do have one physical laptop I'll bring when I need something for hardware.
Fair enough. Okay, Chris, I have to take this pro level segue here.
Okay.
You mentioned Ubuntu.
I did.
So, this is part of our dev news.
Yeah, some of the hoopla now, huh?
I'm hearing whispers of an SDK. Now, I've been disconnected, so do you want to kind of fill me in here?
Yeah, well, so I only know what I saw posted on the Ubuntu developer channel, but I watched the talks on this, and so they're just sort of in the very beginning stages of talking about an SDK for application developers that want to target Ubuntu, and they're not going to have anything by the time what's the next 1304 is the next one. They won't really have anything for you to wrap your brain around by 1304. So don't get too excited here. But the idea is that definitely, now of course everything in their world is targeted for 1404. Right. But right now the idea is in this very beginning cycle they're going to focus on some of the things they need to start figuring out. So they're going to start getting things figured out.
Now, have they standardized on language?
Nope, none of that has been determined yet, good sir.
Their current tooling, it definitely seems like they're going to go with Python, which is probably unwise.
Well, yeah, I know that they've said in their talks that they are heavily discussing things with Valve and Unity Technologies and.
Then they're not okay.
But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything. I mean, they could.
Right.
You don't know, right? Or I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do something like you've talked about, where they come up with like 3 tracks. Follow one of these tracks.
Well, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, my concern with nothing against Python, but I almost feel like they need to kind of have their SDK be in a similar language as in some other popular desktop operating system, so that you can share between them. So you can have shared code.
How would they do that?
They don't pick Python, right?
Yeah, but what would they pick? Mono?
Probably.
No, they're not going to do that.
Mono would probably make a lot of sense, or Java. But, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that.
They won't pick Java because of the way things are going with Oracle. Right? I would be shocked if there's an official supported Java track to this SDK.
God, Canonical's so crazy that what they'll do is if they do anything like that, it's going to be like, use Android SDK and we'll run Android apps.
No, you know what? They've already committed so much to Python, or it's going to be, what it's going to be? Python and HTML5.
Yeah, maybe. That could be.
Yeah. Because they've already shown a strong preference for Python. The chat's saying Vala. Vala is a great language. It's very much like C#. But it has such a low market share that I don't know that if they're trying to really spur app development, picking an obscure language doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I don't get the sense that they're going to prohibit if you don't use the SDK. I think the SDK is the blessed method. I'm sure they won't. But it's going to be one of those things where the top tier Ubuntu apps use the SDK. Yeah. Which... Well, no. Lightworks, I think, will become a top-tier app, and that's not going to use the SDK. And Steam is a top-tier app, and that's not going to use the SDK. So the thing is they're too late to the game on this. They're too late. They missed the boat. If they wanted to have everybody following the SDK, they needed to have this out a year ago. They needed to have this when 12.04 shipped or whatever.
Yeah, they need to unify. All signs say Python, to me at least, just based on what they've already done.
Well, that would be the most appealing probably to the community developers. But I don't think that would be as attractive to the commercial developers.
Well, not to bring up a dead horse, but to my knowledge, I haven't checked within the last few days, though, that copyright infringing logo is still on the store, along with a number of other, let's say, IP questionable apps.
Yeah.
I think they're more concerned with pleasing the community they have rather than trying to court, for lack of a better term, outsiders or outside commercial developers.
I don't know if that's true. I think what that is I think what you're just witnessing there is a traditional where Canonical aims high, but they just don't quite have the resources to execute at every single level. And so while they have, they have their desktop management team has people that work every single day with commercial game developers now, trying to get them to bring their games, and they're really reaching out. Like they're going to these conventions. They have people working in Valve's office. They're really trying to get outside developers, and they're not just working with Valve. They're working with people who are also now considering porting their existing Steam games to Ubuntu, and they're reaching out to them. So they're really trying to bring in third parties. I just think they have like certain level of engineers and people that are capable of interacting with human beings and doing that stuff, and they don't have enough people that are on payroll that can then also keep the App Store curated and looking good.
See, I agree with everything you said, but I also think there's a little bit of a cultural inertia there.
Yeah, you could be right. Yeah, because they're just a lot of the people that make up the company are members of the community.
Right, and I think, let's be honest here. They've done a lot of radical changes, especially for Linux in the last few years. But they haven't really thrown out their preferred tooling or how they build things themselves. Right? I mean, someone a few weeks ago, I was talking about Ubuntu, and they said Ubuntu equals Python, and that's very, very true. Unfortunately, besides server, Python isn't that big anywhere else. So if they're looking for client-side rich apps, I'm not suggesting they take Objective-C, because I just saw someone flash. They need to pick something that, I really think they need to pick something Java-like a C#, one of those type of languages that people know or it's really easy to pick up.
It's interesting, though, the way they're not even really committing yet. They say, while the 1304 cycle will not focus on tooling for an Ubuntu SDK for app developers, we want to kick off discussion and ultimately define the criteria we will use to assess each of one of the contending technologies and libraries we'll include in a future Ubuntu SDK.
So there's definitely going to be, that sounds like there is going to be a preferred track and then options.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
So I have a feeling, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that community, I don't think Canonical is going to be able to force the community to change.
No, I think you're right. And I don't think they want to be that company. Because their sales pitch when they go to these commercial companies is, we're eager to work with you. We have a couple of ways we do things, but look, we can really work with you guys, and we'll accommodate. You can make system level changes. They're much more. That's their competitive advantage. Is they're much more open and willing to discuss and compromise.
Right. The chat room's going a little excited about C++. That is probably the most realistic option other than Python, because culturally, it's there are some languages that would be
I wonder what the
unwelcome.
I wonder what the whole Steam software suite's going to be written in.
I think it's C++.
I would think so, right?
But it's weird, right? Because Steam will host your game, and a lot of people are doing, let's say, Unity games, not Unity Ubuntu, but Unity, the engine. And those are generally written in C#, but can be scripted in JavaScript.
The Unity engine just had a new beta that has quite a bit of Linux improvements, including making Linux publishing much more of this is one of the things we can publish to now.
But again, games are a separate thing, right? Because games generally are written to a multi-platform engine and aren't so interested in tying in with the system calls or the system features.
I think Canonical should rewrite the Unity desktop and run it in the Unity engine. What's up? I don't know.
All right. We're not going to get anywhere here, and we're just starting a fight about C++ and if it is or is not object-oriented in the chat room. So
they're totally Mike, or is it? I can't see who was saying Qt, but there are some Qt lovers in Canonical. It's people that really push Qt for some stuff.
Yeah, so. Obviously, I don't know. Maybe it's me, but if you're going with C++, you're probably going Qt if you're on Linux or Mac. Right.
See. But this does solve. Remember, it was like the first few episodes, you were kind of looking at Ubuntu from the outside perspective, saying, well, what is the right track to get on this platform here? What should I be doing? Why is there not an official SDK. And this is sort of solving that problem. I mean, you brought this up a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, if they blessed Qt and had even like the Ubuntu library that you can import into your Qt application, that would be great. I almost feel like they're still going to do their own thing, though. They're still going to have their own little Python way to go.
You think?
I would be pleasantly surprised if I'm wrong. I'll put it to you that way.
We'll see. Well, before we go from here, I want to tell you about a couple of things that I like. Does that sound good to you?
Go for it.
All right. First of all, I want to remind folks that ho, 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 the holidays approach, all of them and all of their different iterations. And we hope that you will keep the fine folks here at the Jupiter Broadcasting Network in mind and take advantage of our affiliate links, which we have at the bottom of jupiterbroadcasting.com, and the browser extensions to tag your shopping sessions for like Amazon and Newegg and ThinkGeek. And maybe, just maybe, as the holidays approach, maybe you get a little extra time and you want to get something done on GitHub, but you need a really good way to do that. Well, there's this fine application called CodeJournal, which you can find over at codejournalapp.com. Mr. Dominic, have you heard of this? Now, I know you've been disconnected from the internet for a little bit, so you might not be familiar with this.
I've heard of it, and I have to tell you, this is a great stocking stuffer, too. If you have, let's say, a elderly grandparent who hasn't used the internet yet,
right,
this is the way to introduce them, really.
Like, you start them with this, and this is their inspiration to figure everything else out they need in order to use this application.
I mean, great for kids. I hear Dylan is constantly writing his code snippets in CodeJournal.
Well, if I ever want him to, I need to get him the software in the first place, otherwise he can't get started.
That's right. You have to pick up CodeJournal, and you have to pick it up direct.
Might as well. codejournalapp.com. Check that out. Also, while we're plugging things, I should mention that Mr. Dominic is always looking for contracting work, too.
Yes.
So,
especially now that,
your clients got kind of screwed by Sandy?
A little bit. So I have a little bit of availability, let's say, for the next week or so.
Oh, man. So, yeah, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you for that kind of stuff?
They can email me at michael@fingertiptech.com.
There you go. And thank you to everybody who supports the network by using our affiliates, or supports Mr. Dominic directly by purchasing themselves or all of their loved ones and extended friends CodeJournal.
And pets.
And pets over at codejournalapp.com. All right. So there we got our plugging out of the way, so that way we feel we got a little tit for tat for this episode. Let's cover our next Dev Hoopla story.
All right. So this article, What Programmers Want, got pretty popular. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's awfully long.
What programmers want?
It's kind of meant for PMs or lead developers and how to motivate programmers.
Okay.
Now, the reason I include it is because we actually have a lot of PMs who listen to the show.
Oh, good. I'll keep that in mind then. Jeez.
Yes. You have to stop saying nasty things about them. So, take a read. Basically, it says, that $5,000 bonus might not make that big a deal to a top-tier programmer.
Yeah, it only works one or two times, and then after that...
especially if you're pushing for like 60-hour weeks, and it's really not going to make it up.
Yeah.
Great read. Even if you're a programmer, it's sometimes nice to have a middle ground to see how other people are thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly.
We had a little, shall we say, inflammatory article this week.
Oh, something to get maybe a few extra clicks on the old blog, something like that?
The old Reddit was aflame, let's say.
Oh, okay.
Escape from Callback Hell. I did not write this. So the title's Escape from Callback Hell, callbacks are the modern go-to. Now, Chris, I'm not sure how much you know about go-to statements.
No, but this sounds controversial. I'm ready for it.
Go-to statements are basically like the worst thing you can do as a programmer ever.
Oh, man. I'm angry already.
It's up there with not using source control.
Oh, okay.
In fact, most languages do not have go-to statements anymore. They're so bad. Because literally, go-to, you give it a line number and it jumps to that line.
Ah.
Awful.
Yeah.
So, this guy writes an article, and when he talks about Callback Hell, he's really attacking, maybe not attacking, but criticizing this new, shall we say, JavaScript renaissance. With things like node.js in particular, and all the various offshoots of that, Express, whatever you want to call it. He makes a lot of good points, right? So basically the way a lot of these callbacks work is your function calls back to another function, and it can get a bit confusing and a bit hard to maintain, especially if someone else ends up having to maintain your code.
Oh, our friend, the sound is back. It's all right.
I don't even know what it is. Okay.
No, I think you have gremlins in there that are tapping on your pole.
I think it's just no. That was you that time.
Yeah, I was just kind of. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to hear it. I was just screwing with you.
Okay. So back at the point.
Mm-hmm.
He has a point, right? You can get a little too callback happy, and your code can be confusing.
I would imagine.
But he goes a little far. And he kind of condemns the practice pretty much 100%. Like, you should not be writing code this way. Problem is, callbacks are good in a way because they allow, that's what allows Node.js, or at least part of what allows Node.js to be so scalable, so asynchronous.
Mm-hmm.
So,
as a good pragmatist, you are saying it's never quite black and white. There's sometimes good justification. Whereas it seems so interesting. It seems to be the rare. That seems to be the rarity, honestly, from my impression in the most of the vocal developer communities. Most vocal developers I know are so red hot or completely cold on issues.
I'm red hot on a few issues too, but they're more the biz dev side.
Yeah.
I mean, reading this, like, I felt like this guy was kind of being a jerk for fun, but he had a good point.
Yeah.
Like, it really can get hard to maintain this code, and it really, sometimes people get a little too excited with themselves, especially in Node, and the code becomes, it's like reading hieroglyphics. So I would put out a challenge to the audience, because Reddit and Hacker News, you're getting like the most extreme of the extreme.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you use callbacks in the manner that Node.js does, or some of these other, quote, asynchronous JavaScript frameworks do? Do you think that they're inherently bad, as this author does? Are you in the middle like me, or do you think they're good and we should just stop crying and get used to this, quote, new way of development?
I gotta say, there's a lot of momentum. It really seems to be picking up. Or
yeah,
at least it has.
Fact, I was in a conversation before Sandy where basically I was kind of playing the role of the old guy, saying, "Oh, this Node stuff, I don't know." I was kind of like,
"Yeah,
where's my object orientation?
Get off my lawn!
Get off my lawn! I don't want your callbacks."
Yeah.
So we have a birthday.
Oh yeah? Let me get the cake out.
Android is 5 years old.
Happy birthday, Android!
Birthday's come a long way. I don't know if anybody remembers.
The BlackBerry style original Android phones.
It's the best Android phone.
Yeah. I do remember that. I remember watching this from the Linux Action Show and understanding that Linux was somehow involved, but not having a clear picture, and really just having no idea where was Google going with this. I remember when they announced like the Open Handset Alliance or whatever it was called, before Android really became like a big thing. And it was like, a few months before the iPhone was announced. And then we actually started seeing this physical hardware. It took so long for it to click with me that there's Linux running in there. And this is really happening. And now they have they just got 79% of the market shipments in the last quarter.
See, when I first saw Android, I was just excited that it was Java, because I was really into Java at the time.
Oh yeah.
But it's certainly come a long way. I mean, I was looking at the Nexus 10. I think that looks better than the iPad 4 or 3 or 3.5 or whatever you want to call that thing.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I looked at the Nexus 10, and I thought it's definitely got some compelling features. Like that screen sounds like
the screen is gorgeous.
Yeah, it just sounds incredible. I'm not convinced. Somebody's gonna have to prove to me that Android's gonna be able to perform with a screen that resolution. I haven't seen. I still see Android struggling. Like people tell me that these, like the Nexus 7, all these devices, there's no stuttering. They're these flawless experiences. Well, everyone I've played with, I still experience it. So, I ordered a Nexus 7 after the Nexus 10 was announced. So I should be getting it hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. And I want to experience it for myself because I
have the 7. It depends on the apps. It's much smoother than even my Galaxy Nexus.
Yeah, I think it's got to be just like
Yeah.
almost there if it's not there yet. But I don't know if they can do it on a 10-inch scale. So I'm
Well,
gonna
even
wait on that.
the iPad has trouble with the Retina. iPad 3, it can lag with the Retina screen.
I mean, let's
So
be honest. That's why Apple revved it, because
yeah,
it is
it was
underperforming in some benchmarks. It would actually underperform the iPad too.
yeah it which is especially if you're doing animations. There was a post that Marco Arment was doing some kind of page turn animation, and the iPad 3 came out and it was horrendous. He had to tone it down.
It's moving 4 times the pixels.
Yeah, basically it's
And see, that's why I'm not yet convinced that Android's going to do it, because I am a bigot on the way Android does its screen rendering. I think it's fundamentally never going to provide the same type of experience. So I want to wait and see. We'll see. So I got the 7 because I think
right.
with its quad core and its screen size, I think that's going to be the sweet spot for me. I think the 7-inch form factor is nice, and I'm excited to see what Jelly Bean's going to do for me. I want to play with Google now.
Yeah. Now, so I've been told that this Nexus 4 does not have any kind of 4G or LTE connectivity. Now, is that only if you buy it from Google?
No, yeah, no, it's only it's what, HDSPA plus.
Just AT&T, which
But it's like a later rev of it. So I guess if you have, it's T-Mobile, and if you have just the right T-Mobile coverage, you could see as much as like 20 megabits down. Is what
but
some of the people
I can't buy a Verizon one basically with LTE.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it is seductively cheap in terms of a mobile phone for a dev phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But without the LTE, I don't think I could use it day to day as my phone.
It is a little crazy in the sense that I like to consider myself pretty unbiased. I think if the iPhone 5, I mean, so this is Google even called this their flagship phone in their press announcement. So this is their flagship phone. If the iPhone 5, being Apple's flagship phone, would have shipped without LTE, the internet would have exploded. So it is interesting to see Google's flagship phone ship with missing a pretty major feature for some of us, because I have actually pretty good LTE coverage in my neck of the woods. It would have been a slam dunk if it had LTE. To have it ship without LTE and really to have a pretty tepid response to that. Some people are calling them out. But, really like The Verge took a point off the review for it, right? They got like 1 point off the overall score. It's like, okay.
Well, come on, The Verge. Never mind. Sorry.
I just think it is interesting. That said, I think if you're looking at the two features and your option is LTE or your option is I can sell this
price.
unlocked at a crazy good price, I think the better choice is unlocked at a crazy good price.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of interest in Android development in the last month. So I am probably going to pick this up as yet another dev phone.
Yeah. It seems like a great one for that.
What's that?
Seems like a great one for that. And honestly, you can get T-Mobile SIMs that, or just pay what you use. They're really, T-Mobile is really easy to just get a very, very minimal data plan for testing and stuff.
So that's the thing. I like to test all my apps off of Wi-Fi and onto the crappiest connectivity I can find.
Yeah. Well, T-Mobile's great for that.
Well, then, there's one sponsorship deal down the toilet.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, happy birthday, Android.
Yeah.
May the force be with you.
And I'll have my first impressions for my Nexus 7 if you're curious next week, hopefully.
Well, you can't possibly hate it as much as you hated the Nexus Q.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. And because it's a Nexus device, I should be getting Google Blessed updates for a while, right?
Kind of, sort of. So I have the Galaxy Nexus on Verizon. So yes, I got the update, but I got it a month after the AT&T folks.
See, but that's what I'm thinking. With the tablet here, no carrier. It's just me and
you
Google.
get it. Yeah, the tablet.
Me and my
tablet.
Google friend. Yeah, it's just we're BFFs now. And in fact, that thing's even arriving pre-signed into my account.
Again, if you get
AKA Kindle.
It'll be like DOA.
Yeah. But that's pretty crazy to me because I've bought an S ton of Android apps, so I'm wondering they're just all going to be available on my Nexus 7 already. Yeah. That's really nice.
That's how all the app stores work.
I just say Google's got you don't buy it when you buy the iPad, it doesn't come pre-logged in and all that.
All right, you know what, Chris, you made a bad purchase.
Oh man,
you should have bought the Surface.
You think so? Have you played with one?
I've played with one briefly. I have not purchased one yet.
Okay, all right. What were your very first impressions?
So, I went in having read about 30 reviews. One thing I'm noticing about these reviews is they're very polarized.
Mm.
The people like Marco Arment had a very, very, very rude and snarky one where he basically was cruel to the salesperson, which I don't like.
I agree, but I also kind of I think he went over the top. But his assessment is that it's sort of a clone of Apple, but they're not admitting it, the shopping experience, and it is.
Sure, but it has nothing to do with the kid that they hired to do the job.
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
That's what my problem is.
Yeah. Don't pick on the person.
Me and him got in a little pissing match on app.net.
App.net. Yes.
Anyway, I like it, but I don't know if I wouldn't just wait for the pro version.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, so first off, the reviews are all either it's terrible, it's awesome, and then from the developer side, it's a great opportunity, or don't waste your time. There is no middle ground. Like, I was having a difficult time finding middle ground reviews. I've been told that some people have experienced not tearing, but lag on the screen. And I played with it, I didn't.
Did you have issues with the delay, like for rotation and stuff?
I don't think I tried to rotate it.
I've heard it's pretty bad.
Honestly, what I did is I went into the store and was swiping through the categories and kind of playing around to see what's there, what's not, how do the apps perform.
A question from the chat room is what's the difference that the Pro offers? The Pro will be x86 based and will be able to run Windows desktop applications.
So it's more than that, though, right? Because there's a downside to the Pro, in theory.
There's could even be a fan in it, and probably shorter battery life for one.
Right. And I don't know how it would not be heavier.
Right.
And this is a device that I don't think can afford to be any heavier.
Yeah.
And from a developer point of view, I'm probably... So the other thing is no one knows sales numbers. Yeah, and since I've got connectivity back, I've been listening to Windows Weekly, to all the Microsoft-focused shows, and obviously they're all very positive on it, on how and that it's doing well. I don't know that that's true or not. I hope it is. Because I think a third platform would really, honestly, be good for everybody, even if you don't like the platform. Because it keeps all the platform vendors in line. So
I guess that's a very good reason to want Microsoft to succeed, because it will hurt Apple and Google, which, I mean, let's be honest, it's going to hurt RIM. On the phone side, it's going to hurt RIM, right? RIM is going to want to, and no, it's just cruel at this point. But whether you like it or not, having 3 platforms, it prevents 30-day review times, where it discourages it strongly. It keeps arbitrary rejections, and yes, I am thinking of one in particular, to a minimum, right? It'll also encourage Google to police their store a little harder and protect your IP, so no one can copy your app and put it up there, which they're already trying to do, but competition is good no matter what. And I think a lot of people will buy this, because I actually talked, I kind of, to biz dev types, to IT managers, I tried to kind of tell them, well, have you heard of it? What would you think of it? People seem enthusiastic, right? Because remember, normal people live on Excel. Are you talking Pro right now, or are you talking RT?
I'm talking RT. So I pitched it to relatives and to...
You're saying people are going to buy this tablet just because it runs Excel? Why would anybody spend $500-$600?
That's what people are saying to me.
No.
Yes.
I would agree with you, but the problem I have is that right now, from a conceptual perspective, what Metro is a very interesting idea. It's like whenever you look at a movie from the future and they have computers, all of the UI of the computers are consistent and futuristic looking. And that's kind of what Metro is introducing, is sort of this, all apps kind of look the same except for in some small places. The flip side is, and that is very neat to look at, and it is very innovative, and people will talk about that. But the reality is, when you live in it for, say, a month, which I've done on and off now because this client I have is very interested in testing it because they have a very Windows-heavy client base themselves. You can't live in Metro. It's just the apps are half-baked. They are in 90% of the cases web applications that have been sort of just refactored, and they have boxes all over the screen. And there's no consistent copy and paste. Some applications can open apps between other applications. Other apps have their own little silos. Some apps can access the file system. Some can't. It's very, very ununiform, and they're basically extremely watered down. They're not very usable. So
you're definitely jumping into our next topic, so I just want to
curb
it a little bit.
All right, okay.
Before we get into that, because that's actually because of the API. So
yeah. Well, and see, like Snake Doc's saying in the chat room, it's because it just came out. Well, first of all, I mean, developers have had their hands on Windows 8 for a while now, and I've been watching these apps for a while.
Okay, but it's not the same thing.
Well, I mean...
So, even I was not willing to put serious time and resources into producing something designed for a touchscreen when I couldn't test it on a touchscreen. And I think a lot of developers and their clients
my point
are
is,
the same way.
I don't know if the Metro environment allows itself for more serious applications to be built. I can't see it.
I think it does. I mean,
have you tried like the serious apps and they're like OneNote and like even the email app that Microsoft made is good, but it has probably half the functionality that Outlook Express has.
See, I actually don't like the email app.
Well,
I did try OneNote.
They've all been dramatically. I'd say like they have 90% functionality reduction.
Okay, that's true, but that's the same argument people made about the iPad comparing the iPad versions of Mac apps. This is a new platform. It's going to take time, and so right now, let's just focus on the device itself, right? And we'll get into the apps and the API, because that's our main topic.
All right.
As a device, it's not terrible. I like it. I think its biggest thing is Excel and the keyboard. I did not get to use there's two keyboards. One's got like physical keys and one's kind of touchy. I've only tried the touch. That, I think, is going to be a big selling point for a lot of people in itself.
What, the keyboard?
Yes, because you could be snarky and say you can hook a Bluetooth keyboard to an iPad.
It's not the same, though.
It's not the same, and the way the API integrates with it is a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I've heard when you snap on the keyboard, a mouse cursor actually shows up on the screen.
Because there's a trackpad. So you laugh, but if you have an app on the iPad and the user hooks on a keyboard, it's not really a clean integration. As a developer, it's very hard to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's just jump into the API. I mean, the device...
It's good. It's good hardware, right?
This is probably, yeah, it's very good hardware. I'd say it's a nicer tablet than the Zoom.
Okay.
But I don't like the Zoom, because I think it's cheap, and I have one. So there's been a lot of, shall we say, fervor about the WinRT API. So to be super clear, I'm only talking about the WinRT side. We're forgetting about all the legacy stuff because you can't run it on RT. Basically, people feel like their cheese has been moved. And it has. A lot of things have changed. There's a few topics I think we're going to cover in different shows. One of them is, we talked about, I think, the cultural rift at Microsoft between the native C++ focused groups and the .NET, CLR, C# focused groups. It seems like the C++ folks have won, or are winning by a significant margin. I don't know how much attention you've paid, Chris, to the API, or to even their Channel 9 videos. C++ is, and I'll go out on a limb here and say it is a first-class citizen. C# is a close second, and everything else is behind it.
And this holds true on the Windows 8 phone too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about them deprecating XNA, but simplifying DirectX to a point, or Direct2D to a point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very interesting move when you're trying to get developer attention. Because remember how there's a lot of people who hate that the best way to develop for iOS and Mac is Objective-C because it's old and low level, or relatively low level. For Microsoft to go with C++ is a really interesting gamble. I guess they've seen that Apple has been super successful.
Am I being a noob by saying also that it's sort of a competitive advantage over Android, although Android allows for native code? But isn't that kind of like one of if you're writing in C++, you're generally going to
so that's a flame war I'm going to totally dodge.
Okay, all right.
So
I'll put that out there though.
Yeah, one of the basic arguments that tends to happen between mobile developers is, well, iPhone apps always perform better because they're written in Objective-C.
Right, that's kind of what I was based, because I've heard that from...
I do subscribe to that, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be.
And yeah.
because the compiler can optimize and the system can optimize.
Right. And they've solved a lot of that, I know, in
Right.
later Android.
Now, that's not to say that. So the C+ APIs are robust. They've definitely done some modernizations. It's still C++, so if you're not comfortable in that area, stay the hell away. C#, it's really interesting what's going on with C#, though. And I'm sure you know this, Chris, C# has been the preferred language in all things Microsoft since it came out, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, since they kind of started pushing away VB.
And really, any shops that were really, really tight with Microsoft were all about that too.
Pretty much. I mean, and even within Microsoft, the only things written in C++ tend to be the desktop itself and Office.
I'm constantly patching and installing a certain rev of .NET runtime for some weird application.
Right, because every .NET has become popular for a lot of good reasons. I mean, it definitely helps productivity. The issue is now that they have a fragmented API, and I think you're safe with C# and Java. I mean, I'm sorry, C# and C++. But things get really weird, and this is to one of your complaints about the pseudo web apps. What are they doing with JavaScript? Why is it there?
It's just what I mean, and the problem is because it's there, it's what they're like. Everybody's just crapping out something with.
I've even tried to look at their docs. I've tried to get on this JavaScript bandwagon because, that's great, potentially lots of cross-platform. Even the sample code is harder to maintain than it should be.
I'll tell you, the apps that that it's producing right now are essentially. Do you remember when one of the big features to macOS 10 was the widgets?
Yeah, essentially that's what a lot of developers are doing.
That's what Metro is right now. Metro is a full-screen widget environment.
And even in my private discussions with developers who are looking into this, a lot of them are taking the low-hanging fruit. Well, I can do some JavaScript, and then I can kind of port it to Mac, or more accurately, iPad, and Android, and it's kind of the same code, right? Just not entirely true because they have their WinJS library.
Oh yeah.
And to their credit, it is certainly optimized. I mean, there was not a huge performance hit.
No, it performs well. Metro is very fast. All of the apps.
I'm making a distinction between the three development paths here. And I'm ignoring F# because I don't think anybody outside of the server space uses F# for anything. And even then, that's a big data scientist kind of thing. And if you're using VB, that's all I have to say. Don't.
Don't.
Even by their own admission, they have a page where they say which path you should take. They admit that the JavaScript path is limited. Yeah. So why the hell is it there?
Yeah, it's like because they just want a bunch of apps, maybe?
Because I think they're trying to get low-hanging fruit just to get quantity over quality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, honestly, for me, I think if I had to pick one for most apps I would develop, I'd probably go the C# route, but I wouldn't necessarily mind going with C++. Only because I would want the trade-off between productivity with C# that I would get over C++.
Oh my gosh! I was just looking. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. But you mentioned they have something to kind of help people pick which path to take, and you're not kidding. They have like this whole chart you break out that you can follow that is like.
I've been going through their docs for 2 months now, trying to figure out who are they targeting.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I mean, this is like you really got to sit down and study this thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of information, and I can't pack it all into one segment, so maybe we'll come back to some of it. But the breakdown, C++ is definitely the first class citizen. C# is close second. This JavaScript stuff, though, I feel like that's going to pollute the App Store in a way, or whatever they're calling it. You're going to get a lot of very trivial, we're basically going to get Flash games, right? We're going to get that kind of quality. And I just don't know why. It's nice that they're embracing standards, right? It's nice that they're embracing HTML5.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they have WinJS, they're perverting it a little, but they're not perverting it that much compared to things that other companies do. I just I don't know why. They're pitching it as their accessible platform, right? So they're pitching JavaScript as the accessible way to develop on the platform. I'm not sure that's a thing I would want to promote. You know, there's a famous quote, teaching basic to a new developer pollutes their mind forever. I feel like it's the same way for JavaScript, because 90% of these languages that you'll be using are Java, C#. They're classical inheritance. They have great tooling, and they're just not. The current state of JavaScript isn't ready for this, and that's borne out on the App Store. Now, perhaps this is why TypeScript exists. That makes their TypeScript move make a lot more sense. But I would even put this to a poll to the folks listening. You know, are you a Microsoft developer? Believe it or not, Chris, we do have plenty of them that listen.
They're just quiet about it, I guess.
They email, but they don't say much in the chat.
Right. Got a duck.
Are you guys going to stop doing your C# and jump to JavaScript? Because coming from Objective-C, you know, I don't know why you would do this. I feel like, and I'll go out on them, I feel like Apple proved that using the low-level language gets you better performance in general on mobile devices. So to me, the top tier choice would be C++. But for let's say productivity, C# is a good second option. So where does JavaScript come in for serious development, other than perhaps students or hobbyists? And if that's the case,
just crapping up the store.
Right. I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't want a store full of hobbyist crap.
That's what's in there now.
That's not to say that our student listeners couldn't develop good apps. If their apps are good, I would love to buy them. But I don't want, the nth fart app. I don't want the nth Angry Birds clone.
Maybe they just see a future where there's just a ton of web apps that they want people to be able to easily port over, or the only thing I can really figure is because they could always just add that down the road. That's the other thing, is like if there was huge demand, they could just introduce that in Windows 9 or something. So it's got to be to help just an influx of apps, and it does seem to be that's the route that a lot of these apps have taken.
And what's interesting is, not to jump back on Ubuntu, but Ubuntu is embracing this HTML5 JavaScript stuff fairly heavily too. Perhaps I'm just being, a bit of a get off my lawn type guy here. I love interactive web apps. I write them. I've done them for clients, all in JavaScript. That's fine. But if you're developing a desktop client app or a tablet client app, why is JavaScript your first choice over something, not to say better, but
something more appropriate?
More appropriate. And remember, Microsoft has a long and rich history of supporting C++ and C#. JavaScript has been a bit of a windy road.
It's almost like Microsoft finds themselves no longer in the dominant position, and they don't quite know how to respond and how to handle that.
But is this a valid response to that?
They're still trying to figure out how to do that. They don't know. They don't know yet.
I mean, I like the tablet, but I'm probably going to get one. But I don't, from a business point of view, I don't want my app next to some crap, right? Because then it creates the culture of free, where it's hard to charge for apps on the platform.
No, they're not. They're charging now. Trust me. I've spent some money just trying things out.
Well, they're charging now, and that's good. But
I gotta say, I'm not very impressed with what I mean. Like, so the one thing I bought, like a UPS package tracking app, just to see like how, the idea being like I would get a live tile update of like my status information. That never worked for whatever reason. But it was $2.99, and it was essentially, at the end of the day, it was, here's a list of your packages, and when you click on them, here's a Bing map of where they're at. But it's just the last place the UPS person checked in at, so it's like, the UPS shipping thing. And that was the whole app.
And I've seen several of those. And, there is certainly some perhaps indulgence to be given for developers, because this is a very new platform. And I'll be honest, I've done some potential prototyping. And yeah, it's hard to move platforms. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not. But when I decided, I did 2 prototypes, I looked at JavaScript for about 10 seconds and realized that it's really not the first class citizen. And then I came to XAML, which is their weird layout thing, and C# and C++, and those are the
Maybe,
best way to go.
I go back to our chat with Ben and look at that MVP concept here, minimum viable product. Maybe the idea is to allow developers to put their toes in the water to see if they can make money at this platform before they really throw behind something significant.
Yeah, but doesn't having a crap app that gets 1-starred ruin any chance of success for later?
You're not guaranteed to have a crap app, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, I haven't seen too many good apps that I know are written in JavaScript in Metro. Put it to you that way.
What's kind of a bummer is even like pro apps are not that great.
Right, and that's partially immaturity.
Yes, yeah.
But this is kind of the same complaint I have with Ubuntu. A multi-pronged developer story isn't good in a lot of ways. Like Apple has one path, and all these developers had to relearn or learn for the first time Objective-C, and that wasn't a problem. So why is everybody else afraid of that?
Because I don't think, for some reason, and you maybe could speak to it better than I could, nobody else really gets anybody to move like that. I mean, like, when else have you seen somebody come out and be like, all right, you're all doing this now, and everybody just got in line and just did it? When does that happen?
But it wasn't everybody at first, right? It was Mac developers made a ton of money, and money talks.
Oh, yeah.
And other than the people who are just religiously against working in Objective-C,
Microsoft doesn't have like this really strong indie culture, do they? They have more of like the big corporate culture where they're very slow and they're tested and they're deliberate.
Well, you have to give them credit. They're building an indie culture, and they're doing it by their tools are very expensive and they're giving them away.
Yeah.
They're trying to build the culture.
It's probably like Snake Doc says, they're trying to make this their competitive advantage, the fact that they're not like that. Because if they're going to be just like that, then why not just go with Apple?
Well, there's a lot of reasons not to go with Apple,
I know.
right?
But you maybe see some logic there. Like they're looking at it as like a competitive advantage, the fact that we're being super flexy, guys. We're cool to work with.
I suppose. I mean, that probably is what they're thinking. I'm just wondering, is there a point when you build an app in JavaScript that you realize you've hit the wall, right? Where it's, I need to do my 2.0 in C# or C++. Or you just can't go any further. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking. Am I playing with this? On the bright side, the API is actually really good. It's really good that they decided to redo all this crap because their stuff was really old and really bad. So, I mean, that's the way it is.
We all have been wondering for years and years, when's Microsoft going to make a clean break?
So all this whining and all these reviews about it breaking old apps, those old apps deserve to be broken.
Yeah. God. Oh my. As somebody who supports old apps, let me tell you, I agree.
I hate legacy code. Any excuse I have to rip out someone's legacy code, I go for it, because it's not to say that the developer who wrote it was a bad developer. It's just that, code is often a reflection of the time it was written in, just like any poem or book. Getting a little metaphysical here. Things that made sense on Monday don't make sense 2 years from now. Even if I wrote something last month, things change. Requirements change. The ecosystem changes. The code needs to change too.
Yeah.
Clinging to these old, and remember, somewhat insecure APIs was dangerous. And honestly, I would say the best feature of the Surface to me is that it does not run legacy apps. That's awesome. Right.
Except from Office.
Yeah, well, there's always a few throwbacks.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to imagine that if the RT does take off, eventually Microsoft's probably just trying to figure out how to do it in Metro, right?
I would do some, Googling or Binging, since we're on the topic. There have been plenty of blog posts written about the cultural divides, and it's not that they can't do it. It's a won't situation. But
I wonder why. Yeah.
It's culture. It's the same reason that when somebody tells me about Mac Ruby or one of those things, I kind of get annoyed. You just don't like it, right? Because you took the time to learn the quote harder way of doing things, and you don't want the competition, or you legitimately don't think it's as good. In the case of Mac Ruby, I think that's horrible. But
horrible.
terrible. All right, so I think we covered that for now. Now, can I tease next episode?
Oh, totally.
We talked a lot about C++,
Uh,
and we kind of did a high level of the whole API. And I know these last few episodes have been very high level. Next week, we're going into C++, because there has been something of a renaissance in it. And we're going to see. We're going to look at it from the Ubuntu perspective, the Microsoft perspective, and it kind of exists in Apple, sort of, as libraries. And the reason for that is I'm going to try to suggest that C++ could be the language franca for all the modern clients.
you crazy SOB.
I think it can, and I think it should. But we'll talk about that next week. So next week should be a haterade-filled show.
Well, and of course, we also want to cover your feedback, especially with your thoughts on the JavaScript stuff. Emails, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Should we do our book pick before we scoot out of here?
Yes, C# 5.0 in a nutshell. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, well, you know what? Why not, right? If we spark some interest or whatever, there you go.
I've been reading this, and I read it over on my Kindle over the power outage. It is actually a very good language, and this book is very well written, and in a nutshell, it's to the point.
Well, thank goodness for good Kindle battery life.
That thing can last like a month.
Was that the Paperwhite?
Yes, it was, because it has the little front lighting.
You digging it?
I'm digging it, but I do still use my other Kindle during the day.
Really? Really? So if you've got ambient lighting, you prefer the old model, huh?
Yeah, and I know I can turn off the Paperwhite. I just don't.
Interesting enough, sir. All right. Well, very good. Thank you, Mr. Dominic, for an excellent show. Why don't you tell the folks where they can find you throughout the week?
You can find me on Twitter @Dumanuco, samonapp.net, and they can find me on Google+.
There you go. You can find me on all those places, too. We'll have links to those in the show notes. And, of course, you can watch us live Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, over at jblive.tv or jblive.info for the audio. And then the show's available for download later on in the day. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode, everyone, and we'll see you right back here next week.